Last question for today. This goes to Reuven from Hamadia.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. You've been discussing equality a lot, and I'd like to ask you about another apparent inequality in the city. During the past week, on multiple occasions, NYPD officers have expelled mothers and children from playgrounds in Brooklyn. Well, just a few blocks away, on the same day, there were protests with hundreds of people. How does it promote equality, Mr. Mayor, when protesters have already had nearly 2 weeks to be out in the street are continually allowed to gather? While families, many are large families living in very small apartments who've been shut in for months and want to enjoy a hot summer day, are being expelled.
Look, Reuben, I appreciate the question. And this has been such a complex reality. I think, again, several have asked this question. I do think the moment that this city, this nation has gone through in the last 2 weeks or so is something very particular, very painful, very intense, very challenging, but also a moment where literally decades and centuries of the demand for change came forward. And real change is happening as a result. And I don't, for a moment, Reuben, I don't lack compassion for those parents. I know it must be extraordinarily tough. I know parents are so frustrated. Look, for Shirley and I, with 2 kids, we often felt really challenged, even when we weren't cooped up in a pandemic. So a family with 4 kids, 6 kids, 7 kids, 8 kids, 9 kids, 10 kids, I can only imagine how tough that is for the parents. And I want nothing more than to get them back to those playgrounds. It was one of the areas where I really tried my best to keep the playgrounds open. And if it hadn't been for the growth of the pandemic, we would have. But we had to at the time. This is something we worked on with the state. We had to get to the point of saying, look, out of abundance of caution, the playgrounds just created too much of a risk to families of the spread of the disease. The day is coming. It's not here yet, but the day is coming when we'll be able to open up them again. We don't have a timeline yet. It will be absolutely connected to how we do at fighting back the disease. More to say on that when the right time comes. But I hope I have given you some sense of why I think the demonstrations were something absolutely unexpected, absolutely particular. But the ongoing effort to try and relieve the pressure of these families while still protecting against the resurgence of the disease. And this is the punchline. This is what matters, Reuben. The last thing you want, or anyone wants, is a resurgence of this disease that then will lead to the restrictions being once again put back in place. We're finally in phase 1. A lot of those small business owners that your publication and others have raised the concerns of are finally starting to get back to work. They are a few weeks away from getting back to normal work, for example, in retail stores. We have to hold the line, as painful as it is, to not allow the spread of this disease so we can get back to that. You have a follow?
My follow-up is, I'd love to also get Commissioner Shea's answer on this, but I realize that he's not joined the call since there were rumors of his resigning. My question is, the Manhattan DA has said he's not going to prosecute those arrested for unlawful assembly or disorderly conduct. The Brooklyn DA said he's not going to prosecute those arrested for unlawful assembly or violating curfew. We're talking about during the protest now. What is your reaction to that? Does it undermine your authority to establish a curfew and the police to regulate the protests? And by the way, about the Fort Hamilton thing, the Army rejected a request from you and Brooklyn Borough President and Representative Yvette Clarke and others in 2017. The street is still named there, although the church nearby removed the plaque from the tree that Lee planted.
Well, thank you. You're a knowledgeable guy. Well, then we will go right back at the military, and I will today reach out. I've built relationships with some of the senior military in the context of the coronavirus crisis, and I will reach out to them and let them know how important it is to remove the name of Robert E. Lee, not only at Fort Hamilton, but everywhere else. The DAs, look, it's a democracy. There are all sorts of checks and balances. District attorneys elected independently. I sometimes agree with them. I sometimes don't agree with them. I think they need to be willing to act when someone violates the law. But no, I'm quite confident that what we needed to do with the curfew was achieved, and the actions of the DA had no impact on that. The curfew was to address the attacks on property. It was to address what we saw that Sunday and Monday night, and particularly the extraordinary pain I saw in the community in the Bronx that was so deeply affected. It was to make sure that never happened again. Thank God that never did happen again as a result of the curfew and other actions. Thank God we kept the National Guard out of New York City. We got the city back to a peaceful place. Then, the second I was confident we were there, we removed the curfew. So the actions of the DA had no impact on the ability to utilize the curfew and utilize it effectively. But we'll keep working with the DAs. Whether I always agree with them or not is not the point. We keep working with them. And we need their help to keep the city safe. And there are, more and more issues we're going to turn to in terms of safety. Once we get through, this immediate, absolutely primary concern of fighting back this disease and addressing the disparities it's laid bare, we got to also get back to the bigger issues of safety facing the city. We're going to need the DAs to play a bigger role in addressing the safety concerns. But that is a conversation for another day.